The most important thing I want to say to anyone as an operator or a potential customer is that do not adopt technology for the sake of it. There are specific problems that need to be solved that your operation is facing. You know those specific problems already. So adopt a technology for that. I think we become most useful when you need to increase your facility throughput with reduced labor. But that's what we do. And it might be the case that you have some other challenges. But so find the right tech for that. I say that because a lot of people get enamored by flying drones. I would say get enamored by solving problems.
Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. We are proudly presented by SPI Logistics, and I am your host, Blythe Brumleve. And on today's episode, I'm happy to welcome in Sankalp Arora. He is the CEO and co-founder of GatherAI, and we're going to be talking about the impact of AI and warehouse drones inside of, well, none other than a warehouse. So Sankalp, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Blythe.
Now, I was listening, but in preps for this interview, I was listening to a bunch of different previous conversations you had had. One of my favorites was your appearance on the Logistics of Logistics podcast. Joe Lynch, he's a friend of the show, and he was mentioning all of sort of, the intricacies, or you both were having a great conversation about the intricacies of just drones inside of the warehouse, how this idea sort of came to be. And I really want to start there because you have a long history of just an interest in robotics. It dates back to your childhood, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I always wanted to make robots, and now I get to make robots that serve people. So living the dream in some sense.
And so I think in one part of that conversation, you were talking about making robots curious, and with the sort of the current state of what goes on inside of a warehouse. Can you kind of give us what is going on inside of a typical warehouse, and then making the robots curious about what's going on in the warehouse?
Oh yes, I'll take the first principles approach because I think that's where all the joy is. Because you're getting warehouses are acting as a buffer zone between suppliers, people who make stuff, to shipping last mile to e-commerce or shipping within the network. So they get a bunch of stuff that they need to store so that just like a water tank in your city, you can then store those goods and ship them out. So it seems like a very simple thing to do, right? In terms of you get a bunch of goods, you store them in your warehouse, and then you ship them out as needed. And it turns out it's complicated because you're shipping so much out out from the warehouse that's come to the warehouse, and you're shipping it in a fashion where you used to ship 5,000 pair of jeans to a Walmart store, but now you're sending a pair of jeans to Blythe or Sankalp, and those pair of jeans better get there. So the demands on how accurately the things need to go out and be distributed out of a warehouse have increased so much since e-commerce has come about. And at the same time, the visibility that we get on those operations is still stuck with barcode readers telling you where the stuff is, and people using barcode readers to scan where that stuff is. What does that mean? That means that you don't have visibility on large amount of goods that are coming into your warehouse in real time. Neither do you have visibility on how quickly they're going out in real time, other than people manually scanning barcodes in a high stress, high velocity environment, which leads to errors. And now errors actually not just impact, oh, I sent 50 jeans short to a Walmart store. They actually impact that I sent the wrong pair of jeans to a customer who's never going to buy from me again. So the need for that accuracy has gone so much higher. So now you need different ways of getting visibility into your operations so you can run a much higher, more accurate operation to maintain your revenue stream. And that's where using cameras, computer vision, flying drones, or ground robots come in terms of automation.
And so that's what your company GatherAI specializes in, is creating, or are you manufacturing the drones yourself, or is it more software based, or is it kind of a combination of the two?
I like to say we are a computer vision company. All we do is take images and convert images into inventory data that people can rely on and trust on in real time. Our drones, we don't manufacture them. We are not a robot manufacturing company. But it turns out we are the only company in the world that can take off the shelf hardware that is tried, true, and tested and actually make it useful, turn it into useful data gatherer. Hence, it's curious because it's a data gatherer by using our software. That's our secret sauce.
And so it's one of the things that, it took me forever to realize the differences between software and hardware. And, one of the comparisons is that, with hardware, that there's the reason why they call it that is because it's hard to make. And so if you can take advantage of all of these off the shelf products and then use your software to solve a specific problem, then you're already kind of, it's almost like a race to the finish line.
Yes.
So I'm curious, how did you first know that this was a problem that needed, I guess, to be solved? And how did you always maybe have a longing for the supply chain industry? I guess that's kind of weird to say. Or did you know about logistics? Or how did you know that this was something that you wanted to solve, especially with having robotics interest at such an early age?
So I didn't have specific longing to supply chain. I'm a roboticist by heart and want to make agents that are intelligent, that are useful, that serve a purpose. And this really started and came about when I was working on a full-scale autonomous helicopter. And I'm standing in the fields of Quantico, FBI training grounds, five-star Army generals behind me. And this helicopter comes in, and I get to be a part of the team that made the autonomy for the helicopter. It comes in, avoids a bunch of trees, avoids a hay bale, and lands itself. And it's like, oh, this is so cool. I get to make a world's first. And we actually won a few national awards for the work we did. But what stayed with me was it is such an amazing data gatherer because it had covered 10 kilometers of path length and digitized the whole area that it had flown through. That's where I dedicated my PhD on how to make robots curious. With sort of that was the watershed point that this is the problem to solve. And then I started looking for applications where curious robots can have an immediate impact, which is where supply chain came in. It's like, oh yeah, of course you need to know where your goods are, at least within your four walls, so you can serve your customers right. And repeatedly and urgently, those problems came on from people who are now our customers, but then only potential customers. Where someone would say, I wrote off $1 million of inventory last year within my warehouse. Someone else would say, I can only meet 98% of my orders. So 2% of my customers actually go unsatisfied and they leave and never come back to my place. And the worst was, you know what? I have my team spending overtime every day and double shifts every day just to stay on top of my inventory so I can stay with this e-com boom. So it just made sense. If robots can be curious about wires and openings in buildings and moving assets in environments that DoD cares about, we could have robots curious about where is inventory in a warehouse. And that's where sort of GatherAI came about and supply chain interest came about.
And so with these drones or robotics, or do you have a preference on what we should call them? Is it drones or robotics? Or are they kind of the same thing?
Kind of the same thing. I think I like to call them data gatherers because that's all they're doing.
And so how does it sort of work? I've seen the videos of it. We've actually talked about it. Grace Sharkey and I, we host a monthly show called Freight Friends, and she brought this to my attention as one of her favorite freight businesses. And so this was the first time I was seeing, the drone in action. And so it's if I'm understanding correctly, it's deployed on the different aisles of a warehouse. It goes vertical up and down or even side to side, and it scans and takes images of all of the inventory, and it counts the inventory and then sends that back to your software, your SaaS, I would imagine. Do I have that description accurate?
Yeah, mostly accurate. I think the only thing I want to add to it is it does all of that while, of course, no one is flying it, it flies itself.
Oh, that's
Uh,
cool. Huh.
and the other thing is, while the drone is flying and while it is doing all those things in terms of using its cameras to figure out where it is, to fly itself, to take images, it doesn't, while operating, doesn't need any Wi-Fi or active infrastructure in the facility. So it is basically designed for facilities that already exist. And most warehouses have dead spots for Wi-Fi coverage, and you know that. So operates in an infrastructure-free fashion. And the secret sauce comes in, how do we get these drones autonomous? One part. The second part, which is more important, converting images to inventory data, which is counts, barcode reads, label reads, empty, not empty, how much of a pallet location is occupied, and presenting that in our SaaS dashboard to our customers.
And so does that, I guess that data and that information, does it live on its own within sort of the, the GatherAI platform, or does it sync to, their warehouse management system? How does the data sort of live and breathe so that workers can take action on it?
Yeah, so it lives on our dashboard to the extent where people can take action on it. Because as you can imagine, most warehouse management systems are not designed to handle image data, where now we can actually provide image data for each and everything that we audit and we report to. So people take actions on our dashboard. When they've taken actions and it's really clean data, it can sync with the WMS.
Are you in freight sales with a book of business looking for a new home? Or perhaps you're a freight agent in need of a better partnership? These are the kinds of conversations we're exploring in our podcast interview series called The Freight Agent Trenches, sponsored by SPI Logistics. Now, I can tell you all day that SPI is one of the most successful logistics firms in North America who helps their agents with back office operations such as admin, finance, IT, and sales, but I would much rather you hear it directly from SPI's freight agents themselves. And what better way to do that than by listening to the experienced freight agents tell their stories behind the how and the why they joined SPI. Hit the freight agent link in our show notes to listen to these conversations, or if you're ready to make the jump, visit spi3pl.com.
So what do some of those actions look like? So say the drones are going through the warehouse, they're taking all of these photos, it goes into your dashboard. What kind of information is being presented to you? Is it inventory counts, like, hey, we might be low on this particular item, or maybe it's inventory that you weren't exactly sure of the exact counts? What kind of information is being presented to the user?
It starts with as basic as your WMS says X is here, but actually Y is sitting here. So there is an exception. Then goes down to your counts are off. And then it goes down to, oh, you're saying that this location is empty, but you're just storing a bunch of shrink wrap in this location. So that's an exception, and going to go act on it. Down to the level of, you think this location is 50% occupied. Your counts are right, but your sizing is wrong. It's only 10% occupied. You can consolidate your locations and make your warehouse better. So all of this information is present on the web dashboard, where people can select actions to take. Like, I want to visit this location physically. I want to correct the WMS count. I want to consolidate these two bins, and then get synced to WMS data. So you can imagine people, 90% of the time, people used to go out there to fix inventory or to recount it. Now they can just look at a web dashboard and do it. And 10% of the time they say, I need to go visit physically, because I don't know what is going on here.
Oh, that's super interesting, because I like that you presented it as exception management, where it's not just because I think that's, especially coming from like the marketing world and even like looking at content, and it's almost at times too much data, and I don't know what action to take next. But I love that you said it's more exception management. So the workers who are using this software, it's not just, information for the sake of information. You're presenting the exception managements.
Oh yes, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, people would drown in all the information, right?
Exactly. And so you had I don't know why I assumed that there would somehow at some point there would be a pilot involved in deploying these the drones throughout the warehouse. What does sort of a, I guess, a typical day in the life of one of your drones look like? Is it, you know, several of them inside of a warehouse space? Does it
Mhm.
really depend on the size of the warehouse space? What does sort of, I guess, you know, from the starting shift to the end shift look like for a drone?
No, that's such a good question. I've never thought of a life of a drone because I only most of the time think about life of the user. So I think life of the drone is pretty hard, but a lot of fun because it gets to fly around in a warehouse where it would get from the WMS that, you know, this is where the warehouse management system thinks all the inventory is, and it would say if the oh either I can the user selects, oh, I can have one of the pre-selected missions or fly all the A counts or fly a specific supplier or fly the bins I select. The drone takes off, flies it, the images get collected, if there is Wi-Fi gets synced to the dashboard, and the drone just keeps doing that all day, all night if you wanted to, at the speed of multiple drones. So three drones can do up to 900 pallet locations per hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's on an average 15 times faster than doing it manually. And basically just keep flying through the warehouse throughout the day. Uh, the data then gets synced to the web dashboard, and people can then do exception management as they want to do it. Sometimes a drone gets to feel like a hero, where there is a truck to be loaded, it's waiting on the loading dock, and you're missing a specific SKU that needs to go on it. Then people would say, oh, all my three drones fly this aisle, and within 15 minutes, find me the thing that I'm looking for. So sometimes that excitement happens. And I think that's when they really pay for themselves in customers, where we help you firefight and not pay for these crazy fees just because you couldn't find a single SKU.
That's super interesting. I love that you can just sort of deploy them immediately for a mission, and then they come
Yeah.
back with the information that you needed. How do you sort of balance? Because there's obviously a problem with warehouses all over the country with adopting technology, but then also filling the roles of the staff that they need because they're not
Mhm.
adopting technology. So how do you sort of, I guess, ease those concerns of people who think, oh, this is just going to take someone's job? How do you help them see it as more of a companion to their job?
First of all, you're so right that it's a companion, because oh, I used to do only 60 pallets per hour. Now I can do 900 just by myself, and just control. I have these three drone buddies that I can control at any given point, where I can tell them, hey, go there, scan that location. And the easiest way I've found to cross that bridge is actually to meet them where they are at and show them working it in their facility. Because once they see it in action, they get, oh, my life would be so much easier now.
So it's actually
So,
showing them first of this is
right.
what is possible, and then
Mhm.
it probably eases their concerns a bit.
Yeah, and given our model, because we can show up to any warehouse and within 45 minutes automate a section of the aisle.
Oh, wow.
So we end up, if people are serious about solving their problems, we just end up showing it to them, and suddenly you'll see all the fears and doubts melting away. It's like, ah, okay, this is now I get it completely.
So let's while we're on the topic, let's talk a little bit about what that onboarding process looks like. From the time that, you know, maybe a warehouse owner says, okay, we need some kind of solution because I'm tired of hiring people that, you know, show up for one day of work and then they never come back, or just the turnover is so high
Mhm.
within warehouse workers. So they know that they have a problem. They've contacted you and you say, okay, we're going to deploy this solution for you. How do you show up on site to evaluate the warehouse operations? Do you take inventory of what they currently are using? What does that sort of initial process look like?
So in the initial process, our job is to help customers solve a problem. So that's how we first evaluate. Someone would contact us, we would meet with them and understand what are the set of problems they're looking to solve. Mostly the problems that we help the most is, I cannot hire sufficient number of people for what I want to do. And from what I want to do in terms of revenue is too steep a climb for my current inventory processes to meet that. Either in terms of labor or most of the times in terms of processes, because manual processes will only get you so far. Once we understand that, we map out the math behind it. We ask for facility photos, we ask for the facility layout. And if all of that checks out, we show up at your facility in 45 minutes, automate an aisle and show it to you how it's going to work. How can it impact your operations? What is the ROI of it? And then if the customer is ready to go, we now have a rough waiting time of roughly 2 months to come and deploy. But once we are ready to deploy, usually a warehouse gets deployed in 15 days.
Wow.
With no changes in your warehouse infrastructure, not even a PowerPoint or a plug. Before we leave the facility, we make sure there is 2 days of shadowing where we stay and you run the thing and you start seeing the benefits, and then we leave. The deployment process is we just map the warehouse and place some stickers in the warehouse which locations are mapped, and that's all.
Wow. And so I imagine there's probably, you know, a similar section of the warehouse where, say, all the forklifts are stored. So then you have another section that you're going to store all of your drones in a certain area. And then as a worker, when I'm coming to the warehouse for the day, am I deploying them to do an inventory count for the day? Or is it really only to maybe like a once a week type process that I have to run?
Oh, people run it every day because some customers want to go through their full warehouse every day.
Oh, wow.
And because for air cargo, for example, it's very important to go through the full warehouse every day. So even if it's a small warehouse, let's say 5,000 pallet locations, they would still get 3 drones to run through it every day. Whereas for some customers, it's important to do weekly cycle counts, weekly go through the full warehouse. Then they would say, I have 25,000 to 60,000 pallet locations. I can use 3 to 6 drones to do it. Because the benefit, think about this, Blythe, the benefit is you used to count your warehouse once every quarter. And once every quarter, you'd figure out all the little problems in location that, oh, this thing is missing here, this thing is missing there. Now you can do it once every week and make decisions on your operations once every week. That is actually the game changer for most of our customers.
Brokering success demands a battle-ready strategy. TIE TMS equips freight brokers with the ultimate battle station for conquering a tough market. With TIE, brokers gain access to a comprehensive platform where rate intelligence and quote history converge on a single screen. It's not just a page, it's a strategic command center designed to help brokers win. TIE equips your team with all of the data they need to negotiate with confidence and allows them to communicate directly with carriers and customers from a simple control base. Revolutionize the way your brokers perform by giving them a competitive advantage with TIE TMS. For more info, go to tai-software.com/battlestations, and we also have a link for you in the show notes to sign up for a demo.
What kind of decisions are they making after they get this data? Is it, items to purchase, or I imagine it changes for every customer that you're working with, being able to make those actionable steps?
Right. The most common thing is items to purchase, to know that these items are missing from where they need to be and resorting the warehouse to get it right and get it accurate. And the most common action that gets taken is, our inventory accuracy is lower than what it needs to be. So let's fix our WMS to reflect, and let's change in terms of where are we storing what specific items to get it to more accurate, because these items are moving more. These areas in the warehouse are less accurate. Let's make them more accurate. So those decisions get made on a weekly basis now, instead of, oh, for 3 months, I now realize those 2 racks at the back of the warehouse, that's where most of my inventory problems live. So I need to figure out how to get those people to perform better.
This makes so much sense because I used to, when I was younger, I used to work at Costco. And so it's Costco warehouse. And so we, every 6 months, we would have an inventory night where every employee was required to work that night. And you were given a section and you had to count everything in that section and mark it off, and no one could leave until that process was done. Now I feel like Costco could just, hire GatherAI and none of us would have to do that anymore. And you probably have a much more accurate, inventory count besides, employees, where there's human error that probably plays a larger role than most would like to admit.
That's so true. And I think human error is only natural because it's a fast-paced environment where a lot of boring things need to be done again and again.
Do you have any favorite like customer stories of, maybe a customer purchasing your product and then implementing it and then, immediately, or maybe within a few months, starting to see some success?
Oh, I have so many, but I'll
That's
share a
problem to have.
few. I'll share a few that are close to my heart. This was a repeat story. So we deployed at a warehouse. I can't say which customer, but we are now in sort of all of their warehouses in US. The first deployment we did, 6 months later, they call me, and the director of the warehouse calls me and says, Sankalp, you've found $1 million worth of inventory for me in the last 6 months. I was like, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. And then recently, now it's been 3 years in the same warehouse. Over the course of 3 years, we have taken it to around $5 to $7 million of found inventory for them. So that's really close to my heart because it just helps their facility be more efficient, and it's a massive network of facilities. And I'm talking about single facility in which we found this much. I'm not talking network wide. I don't want to talk network wide because I think they'll be upset. I think this other one, which was a 3PL, and we got them from 97% inventory accuracy to 99.999% inventory accuracy. And then they could sell that SLA to their customers. And effectively, in an year, they did a lot of things right, but this was one of the things as differentiator. They were able to roughly double their revenue to get to that point where now we can sell an SLA that very few other people in the world can, and basically double their revenue. The last one only happened very recently, a couple of weeks ago. There's a customer we work with that is dedicated towards getting visually impaired and blind people to be a part of the workforce. And they do that by operating a warehouse that supplies medical supplies to all the VA hospitals. They've never been able to have a visually impaired person do a counting job, but now they have an ability to do that. So just some of the stories where we've had some positive impact on people's lives.
That's amazing. I mean, definitely giving, more options and more roles to folks who are probably super excited to take part in a role that they maybe, like you said, have never had access to, or would never have been able to have access to that type of role. I'm curious if there's any other sort of use cases because this imaging technology and this sort of exception management feels like there's so many other use cases it could be applied to. Do you have sort of a GatherAI sort of roadmap of what this software could do in the future?
Oh, that is so on point, because you're right. It's all we are doing is taking an image and converting into data. Actually, before I describe that, can I mention the name of the people who sort of helped us see that visually impaired people can do counting?
Yes, please.
Bosma is the name of the company. They just do such amazing work. BOSMA. And it's just, you go there and you're just so humbled that people can achieve so much with what they do. So yeah, back to the question of what can images do. So things that come to us from customers, I think one of the things that is coming back again and again is, can you count my check pallets? Because check pallet audits cost quite a bit, and if I damage those, I have to pay for them. It's like, yeah, it's a blue pallet in image. Of course, we can do that. We do much harder things than detecting a blue pallet in image. So that's on the roadmap. The other thing that is on the roadmap is damages, and making sure that we can report on damages because we collect all those images already. The thing that is so close to being launched is saying that your thing is stacked wrong. Because one of the things that one of our customers was facing, they were facing a lot of Instapot damages, because Instapots can only be stacked, I think, 4 high, and people were stacking them 6 high, as a result, causing damages to Instapot. So you say, oh yeah, SOP is being violated here. So these are data-driven insights that are coming onto the roadmap. The other aspect is now we are reporting network-wide insights on how SOPs are being followed and how various facilities are doing with respect to each other in inventory accuracy, in exception reports, in operational efficiency. So those are the 2 big things that we are launching in coming years. And there are a couple of things that I'm not allowed to say. that is I think in some ways going to change how we scan in warehouses, that are coming in Q1 and Q2 of next year.
Oh, that's exciting. I would imagine that a lot of people are listening to this conversation and they're already blown away at the possibilities that exist. And so with you sort of mentioning what's going to come in the future, that it kind of sounds like this is only the beginning for GatherAI.
Oh, absolutely. Because we are not a drone company, we are not a robot company, we are a computer vision and a data company. As a result, it gives us the flexibility to say, yeah, drones can do this much, but there are so many more things that computer vision can do. Because customers don't care about drones, let's be honest, Blythe. They really care about their data. So that's where we want to have an impact.
Well, that's amazing. I think that's a really good place to sort of, in the discussion, we talked about the roadmap, we talked about, product features and onboarding experience and all of that. And so if you're a warehouse owner and you are struggling with employee turnover and, the lack of a true inventory count, then I would encourage you to go to GatherAI's website. We'll link to it in the show notes so that you can check out more of their content, more of their videos, schedule a demo. Is there anything else that you think is important to mention that we haven't already talked about?
The most important thing I want to say to anyone as an operator or a potential customer is that do not adopt technology for the sake of it. There are specific problems that need to be solved that your operation is facing. You know those specific problems already. So adopt a technology for that. I think we become most useful when you need to increase your facility throughput with reduced labor. But that's what we do. And it might be the case that you have some other challenges, but so find the right tech for that. I say that because a lot of people get enamored by flying drones. I would say get enamored by solving problems.
Oh, that is a great quote. I feel like that's going to be the intro quote to this episode. So I appreciate you dropping that one and saving, the best for last, because this was a really fun conversation. I love this concept. You're solving a couple really big problems, and that's, accurate inventory counts, and then also employee turnover. That is an unfortunate reality for this entire country. I think I heard that Amazon was actually scared that they were going to run out of potential employees to work inside of their warehouses. So, these are big problems that require big solutions. And so it sounds like, GatherAI is creating that solution for a lot of these warehouse operations. So Sankalp, thank you so much for your time. Where can folks follow you, get connected with you and the GatherAI team?
Also, find us on LinkedIn. That's where we are most active. And we'll share some of our successes and some of the stories that customers find, that things that we've done well for them. I think that's the best place to find us. And then we're obviously at www.gather.ai. You can always find us there.
Oh, perfect. Yes, I enjoyed a lot of the conversations that you guys shared on YouTube as well. So you have a really great YouTube channel, which is very rare for this industry. So again, Sankalp, thank you so much for your time, and really enjoyed the conversation. So keep up the great work, and we look forward to your Q1, Q2 announcements.
Also, am I looking forward to them. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you.